All right, so welcome back. Yeah, last week ended a little abruptly, but we were naturally just ending it at that point anyway, getting ready to start talking about some of this tech stuff, right, Tim?
Yeah, that's what I'm into, man.
So what is the most interesting aspect that the Pentagon and Congress has discussed about UFOs tech-wise? What's the most interesting to you?
What I find most interesting is actually like what pilots, especially military pilots, say about maneuverability and functionality of what they're seeing. That it's just not possible that the human body could withstand with the technology as we understand it now. Having said that, there's obviously, I believe our governments have technology that we don't know about.
Sure.
To take, pilots that are, trained more intensely on these aircraft and cutting edge aircraft and cutting edge technology to look at some of these things, like in the Tic Tac videos and all of that stuff about G-force and acceleration and speed and all of that, and go, how is that even possible? I find that really interesting, and the fact that no one's really talking about that is kind of interesting.
Nobody's really talking about any of this.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, literally, Congress literally came out and said that the new word UAPs are definitely not man-made.
Right.
Nobody's talking about that either. Now, one thing I want to point out that I find really, because what you said is true, and it is extremely interesting, but what makes it even more interesting, Tim, is that they've been tracking these miraculous tech feats for almost 70 years.
Right.
So it's not the question of who can create this tech now, or even who could have created it 20 years ago. Is it possible that anyone could have created this tech back in the 50s?
If it wasn't us, no one else would have done it in the 50s.
I mean, these sightings, I mean, yes, there were earlier sightings, but, let's talk about like Maury Island, Kenneth Arnold, and Roswell. They all happened in 1947, in that order of happening. So we can literally track back to 1947, where some of this amazing technology has been talked about. And yeah, what was that last thing you just said? Who could possibly have made this? Well, back then, it's us or Russia, right?
Yeah, and Russia was not even close to as technologically advanced as we were.
No, Nazi Germany was a lot more technologically advanced than Russia, but Russia, like us, grabbed up all the Nazi scientists.
Right.
So it wouldn't have been maybe it started off as Nazi tech, but it eventually became Russian tech or our tech. And that's another thing, is Congress has talked about there are two different kinds of UFOs. There's man-made and there's non-man-made. And the man-made UFOs are probably all using shit based on secret Nazi tech to begin with. Now, you're talking about the high speeds and the banking maneuverability, which is impossible.
Right.
So, yeah.
The human body could not withstand in the technology that we use.
No, you'd be splattered.
Right. Right. You'd be pudding.
And
couldn't do it. And
the idea that these are some sort of unmanned drones are possible nowadays, maybe, but again, you go back to the 60s, the 50s, the end of the 40s. No, there's no way those were unmanned drones back then.
Right. Yeah, I would even question unmanned drones. They would have to be more like rockets to come to the speeds that pilots are seeing.
What kind of rockets? I mean, some of these things, they're literally going supersonic. What's the hypersonic? What's the definition of hypersonic? 7 times the speed of sound, I think?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And another thing, you want to talk about the tech aspect of this, and I do. I think this is tied into whatever kind of, because that's ultimately what we're talking about, is a propulsion system, right? What's making them go this fast? We have no idea what it is. There's no heat signatures, right?
Right.
We don't see any wings or propellers or tails.
No exhaust, anything.
No, tic-tac shape. Sometimes a pyramid shape. Sometimes a cigar shape.
A cube. Some of them have been like...
A cube inside an energy circle.
Right.
What the hell?
Right.
But then on top of that, whatever propulsion... I don't even want to call... we can't even... Is it a propulsion system at this point? I don't know.
Not as we understand it.
But not only is it making these fabulous moves and banking and turning and zipping and zagging, But now we have a whole new term, transmedium. We have no science that I'm aware of, Tim, that can take a submarine and make it fly through the sky and then make that same submarine be able to go into space.
Right.
Or any mix-up of those three cannot happen by our understanding of how we use propulsion systems.
Right.
And again,
exactly. That underwater aspect is what makes it just.
And the speeds, the knots that they are reporting of these undersea objects moving is faster than jet planes in the air.
Right.
With the amount of friction in the water, that should be impossible.
Right.
You know, a lot of the earlier cultures, that they talk about the aliens, the gods that came down to them, and they describe a lot of them as either fish-like or reptilian-like.
Mm-hmm.
What were they called? The Nomo. The Nomo were aliens that came down in what was the name of the tribe in Africa? It's an African tribe.
The
Dogon.
Yes, the Dogons. Yeah.
The Dogon. And they reported that these aliens were fish-like, and at the end of the day of interacting with them, these fish-like godly aliens would retreat back to the water. We know less about what's in our seas, much less the bottom of the ocean, than we do know about the moon.
Yeah. Yeah, but we do know about what's down there. Some of it's really weird. It doesn't make sense.
And some of the reports, too, Lake Kovska, is that the name of it, how you pronounce it? The Russian lake. It's one of the deepest lakes in the entire world. And they do a lot of military training there.
Yeah.
And there have been reports from the military men that they, under the water, they literally encountered alien beings who they tried to capture, and most of their team got killed.
Yeah.
Now, it seems to me that whenever there are stories about the aliens attacking humans, it's always us attacking them first. There's not many stories at all that I can think of outside of Hollywood where these alleged aliens are landing and just starting to shoot us up.
Yeah, no, that doesn't seem to happen. There's encounters, but there's no violent encounters initiated.
Not by them that we hear, no. And again,
I'm not aware of any.
That reinforces my idea that they don't allow that shit in space. They are at such a high level that if they get attacked, you know, I hear stories of our soldiers falling, like the Russians, but I never hear stories of, we took out half of the squad of aliens.
Right. You think
the tech is so high level that they're not being damaged by our weapons, or if they are, they're being healed, or they're able to steal their dead away in the middle of combat without somebody else getting shot, and now you have two alien bodies.
Right, which is unlikely.
No, exactly. We have no stories of that. Even from military whistleblowers over the years. That's a story we never hear.
Right.
Now, what else of this amazing tech have we heard about? Well, the pilots have been talking about they don't know if their minds are being read or not, because a lot of times when the spaceships, the UFOs, the UAPs take off away from them, they end up reappearing at the pilot's destination. And they don't know if this is point-to-point instantaneous transportation, or if they accelerate to such a speed that it visually appears to be what we would call teleportation.
Right.
But they know the destination. They toy with the pilot.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes me believe that they release these little things, and the media plays them as like sound bites in newscasts, and it's only to make you complacent with it and not question it at a certain point, where I see them and go, what the hell is that? Tell me more. And I think it's become background noise for a lot of people.
You know, I've noticed what seems to be more of the European, actually, especially Australia and India seem to be huge about following this whole UFO stuff coming out of America. But here in America, whenever something drops from Congress or the Pentagon, you don't hear about it unless you look it up on Google.
Right, you have to go looking for it, yeah.
Or Tucker Carlson. God, Tucker Carlson can't stop talking about UFOs. But, you know, not everyone wants to watch, you know, a Fox show.
Right.
But yeah, why are these information drops not talked about? Why is this technology not talked about? This should be the number one news story in the entire world.
Right, but like we covered in the first episode, even the scientists that come out and talk about this stuff are sort of ridiculed and sidelined by other scientists. So the average person talking about this in the lunchroom at work, you're going to get marginalized if you're talking about it.
Yeah, the debunkers will always have at least one scientist that they're going to be able to go to and say, oh, well, he or she says it's not real, so why should I believe you?
Right.
It's like, well, because you got one schmuck. I got 20 experts behind me.
It doesn't matter. They love that schmuck.
You know, or sometimes they're just afraid because of their careers. Like, I swear to God, half the reason Neil deGrasse Tyson comes off as, at best, on the fence about this whole thing is because he's scared shitless about his position as the rock star scientist. If he says that everything is real, and then 2 years from now we find out this has all been a government cover-up on something else, his career is going to be ruined.
Right.
But we're going to get to them. We're going to get to them in the next episode. God, I just can't wait to start talking about that. But now let's see, what else of this tech? Okay, so they've been talking about hypersonic speeds, banking abilities, possible point-to-point transportation. Anti-gravity.
Yes.
Tim, anti-gravity alone as a tech for us here on Earth could change the entire world.
Right. It could change energy as we understand it.
Well, that's another thing. Okay, maybe not reported from the pilots so much, but some of these, some of the whistleblowers that have come forward over the years, like Bob Lazar, among others, that have said that they've worked on these craft, all talk about this energy system. In fact, one of them was talking about, maybe it was Bob, I can't remember. There's so many of these guys have come forward over the years. It was like a plate. There's like a piece of, like a plate like this size, and it was clear, and they had no idea for decades that it was actually the power source. And when they finally figured it out, it has basically unlimited source of power, enough that something this big could power the entire city of New York for like 10 years.
Right.
But its output is dependent on its need. At the same time, it could last forever to power your digital watch.
Right.
So,
or the state of California, whichever comes first.
Now the idea, now you start putting some of these things together. Because, and the reason I say this is the Brookings report. Basically, this is coming down to the Brookings report in 1960. NASA had this report put together to find out what would happen if they discover alien life and that information is brought to the public. And the Brookings report concluded that it would disintegrate. I think that's the actual word it used. It would disintegrate society as we know it. Now, for years, I've really questioned that. Like, really? How is something like this going to disintegrate society? But now that it's a real possibility, thinking of all this tech, Tim, how could it not destroy society? How can you introduce free energy, anti-gravity, point-to-point transportation to a world like ours that is completely dependent on making some scratch? And how do you make that scratch, that money? Off of transportation, off of fuel, off of labor. So now you have robots working on free energy that can build other robots that can repair themselves, working on transportation with free energy to get to another point, to deliver these things. Where is anybody making money on this now? Society is going to be completely destroyed as we know it. The Brookings report was absolutely 100% right, but not because it was going to cause panic in the street and there was going to be chaos and riots everywhere. It's because how the 1% has structured society on this planet to benefit them is impossible to sustain with alien technology. Society will fall apart.
Yeah, governments don't want us to have that.
No. They didn't want us to have the water car. Remember the water car? Back in the 70s, it was big in the news, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
Yeah. Or alcohol.
The alcohol running. Yes.
Podcasts and different things about it. You could make endless supplies of alcohol from different things, and I'm not talking about drinking quality alcohol, but you could power a car
Yeah.
easily on alcohol.
Yeah,
And
so-
it's just more sustainable.
So raw basic ethanol is really all you need. And we got so much corn in this country, they're paying farmers not to farm corn.
I know.
So all these things. What about cold fusion? I mean, was it back in the late 60s, there was that group of scientists that swear to God that they mastered cold fusion, and they sent the plans out so it could be retested and by peer reviewed, and it never worked again. Never worked again. Somebody fudged something, paid them off, killed a few of them, because you can't have a world running like the end of Back to the Future, just putting garbage in your car and now your car runs.
Right.
So yeah, the Brookings report was absolutely right. All this technology, Tim, is going to literally destroy society by the one percenters' point of view.
From their point of view, yeah. From everyone else's point of view, I think it would change it, not destroy it.
Everyone would be potentially on an equal footing here. This is a form of communism we could never have thought of. And I put it in that phrase because we don't have any, I don't think we have any other really phrase of government to talk about like this. If everything is free and there is no, this is the difference between this and communism, is at least in communism you still have social tiers. You still had the oligarchs. You still had the politicians. You still had a class system, even though it didn't have a monetary class system. Even that would be gotten rid of.
Right.
We wouldn't even have that.
The government decides who gets what.
Imagine living in a world where all this technology is available to you and me, Tim. It is a science fiction world. There's no more jobs. We have machines, computers, and AI to do all the goddamn work for us. We get to lead a life of leisure. And, well, some of us will. Others will be freaking the fuck out. You know, what's going to happen? When's this going to end? When do they put me in a hot dog roll and the aliens eat me? There's going to be levels of freaking, especially the first generation or two, before it becomes the normal, where even your grandpa can't tell you stories about the way the world used to be.
Right. Ripping the Band-Aid off is painful for that quick minute there.
This technology is beyond belief. You know, like the old saying, any technology so far above your own will appear as magic.
Right.
How else do you describe the things that these pilots have seen?
Right. It's like a caveman seeing someone create fire for the first time.
Like we've seen in comedies or cartoons over the years, you go back in time and all you got to do is show the caveman this, and now you're a god to them. You know, it's kind of true.
Right, that's what this is like. I mean, yeah.
Now,
when the most highly trained pilots on the planet can't fathom how something is moving or being controlled, yeah, that's sort of the same thing to me.
I mean, you hear the report from some of these pilots in these that dealt with gimbal, go fast, tic tac, and it kind of changed their lives. Seeing what should never have been seen.
Right.
Nothing can move like that. Nothing can fly like that. Nothing can go between different mediums like that. How the hell is this happening? This is beyond human capability, and that's exactly what Congress and the Pentagon have literally said now.
Right.
This
should be a way bigger story than it is.
Air Force intelligence has no idea what's going on. Navy intelligence has no idea what's going on. So this is not, and this is another big thing, like, and I'll be getting into him shortly in the next episode, that idiot Bill Nye keeps harping on is, all this is one part of the government and military not talking to the other, so no one knows what's going on. No, Bill, you're a moron. That's not what's going on. He's an idiot. I can't tell. I will tell you in the next episode how much I can't stand Bill Nye, the honorary science guy. You know, he's an engineer, but beyond that, all he has is an honorary degree of science.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of engineer he is. Well, I don't know if he did air conditioning or what, but it's not real science.
No, we'll be getting to him. We're getting ahead of ourselves. But yeah, it's this technology is undeniable. It is absolutely undeniable. And to say that it's ours or the Russians or the Chinese is, well, yes, some of it is. That's why the government said there's man-made UFOs and non-man-made UFOs. And do we have drones from China doing shit? Yeah, we do. But is that giant triangle that was hovering, let's say, above the Kremlin a few years ago, was that a Chinese drone? I don't think so.
Probably not.
The technology is either going to destroy the world or well, it's going to change the world. Whether it's going to be destroying the world or saving the world, we're going to probably be the generation that sees that.
Yeah. Maybe if they allow us to.
If they allow us to. Now, who us are you talking about? Because you are. Now, I got into this. I'm not sure if you heard about this. So some of the viewers, this may be retreading something. Are you aware of what Wernher von Braun said on his deathbed?
Yes.
To his doctor, right?
Yes. He said something about a false flag with aliens, to paraphrase it.
Yeah. That this is all just going to be a setup. Basically, I took it to be basically sort of empowering what Eisenhower said in his out-of-office speech, talking about the dangers of the military-industrial complex. And you put what Eisenhower said together with what von Braun said, and it seems to be exactly what's going to happen. So either this is real alien stuff, or, Tim, it's a false flag operation.
And yeah, I mean, I don't have the answer, but yeah, it could go either way. Maybe that's why they're allowing so much of it to trickle out.
Oh, they would definitely. If it's a false flag operation they're getting ready for, then they definitely need enough of the government and the military to publicly come forward and say UFOs are real. Check. They did that.
They need the media.
And if you do, like, I'm such a freak about this. Every morning when I wake up, the first Google search I do is UFO news. And then I go to my settings for 24 hours. Then during the course of the day, I'll do it again, and I'll set it for 1 hour ago. And then at the end of the night, I do it again for 24 hours. And let me tell you, the amount of UFO sightings that are being reported now. Now, none of these organizations are putting it up on their TV shows, but they're all putting it up on their online presences. Every day, Tim, there's more news reports about sightings in Texas, in Ohio, in Washington State, and not just here. In Manchester, in England, every day in Ireland, there's tons and tons of daily UFOs being reported. Some of them are immediately debunked as this, that, or the other thing, but the majority of them are being labeled as unknown UAPs.
Right.
So now you have the government coming forward, the military coming forward saying this is a real phenomenon, it is not man-made, it is not from Earth. And now on a daily basis, we're getting reports of more and more sightings. Congress literally said that this danger is growing exponentially. That is the exact word Congress used. That's why I'm afraid they're setting us up for a false flag.
Could very well be.
And then by the end of this, they'll have defeated the alien presence, but at such a cost that just like Independence Day, we're going to be joined as a world. Okay, maybe that's not bad, but we're going to be joined under a military yoke because they're going to be telling us that the threat is imminent from space constantly, so we can't give up our vigil.
Well, there's a blueprint for it with the Patriot Act, with the coronavirus, and I probably shouldn't have said that because we'll probably get banned. You may have to edit that out.
Well, we're 20 minutes in, so sometimes you can say things late in a video and it gets skipped.
Right. But there's a blueprint for government taking that authority under whatever pretense. And this would fit that model.
Under martial law, that's it. It must fall under some sort of part of the act or a sister act to martial law.
Right.
Because if they can prove that there is an imminent threat, especially if it's already happened once, they can prove that there's a continued imminent threat on our soil, or any soil, because it'll be the entire planet, that pretty much the entire planet can be kept under martial law. And the military-industrial complex has won. It's done exactly what Eisenhower warned us all was going to do.
Right.
But on the other hand, if this is, let's say, real, and this is alien presences and things that Paul Hellyer has told us, and I don't even have the guy's name on the note because it's so far removed, but the guy who recently retired from Israel's head of space security, their NASA thing, he recently retired and said everything Hellyer said. He said the same thing. He said that the governments of the world know about this. America's in contracts with the aliens. Like Paul Hellyer said, the UFOs are as real as the planes flying over your head. The two highest government officials in the entire world, Paul Hellyer and this guy from Israel, have both come out and said that this is a real thing. So if it's not getting us ready for a false flag, then it's a real thing. So the question is, what do they want to do with us? Do they want to promote those that are worthy of leaving this rock, that have proven oneself not to be a hillbilly? Or
those people get relegated to whatever task they want.
Just like them taking us as slaves.
Right.
Or maybe they're either initiating or allowing a natural disaster to just come wipe us all out and start again. You know, if you think about it, what is it that they would even really need? At their level of technology, they can probably either generate any resource they need or be able to almost instantaneously get to where it is. They don't need us as individuals, human beings, because they've taken enough of our DNA, they can clone us indefinitely. And then have the clones have sex to make new DNA, to make new clones, to make more sex, to make new clones. They don't need to stop by Earth and just pick us up. So any of us, if they...
like a screenplay. Someone's going to pick that up and make that a movie.
Well, it's kind of, we're getting near the end here, but it's kind of like I was talking to Tom, one of the last things is I was saying, if you take the story of the rapture and you take religion out of it and you put in aliens, maybe that makes sense. Maybe what this girl was seeing, she misrepresented to herself as a religious experience because she had no concept or idea of how to relate it as a technological alien experience.
Right.
And that the rest of us hillbillies are going to be left here, left behind. Isn't that what the saying is in the rapture? Those that are left behind. Maybe that's what's happening. I tell you, Tim, I don't know if I'm good enough to make the cut.
I'm probably not, because I'm a troublemaker.
I'm going to get left behind. So even if this isn't a false flag operation, this still could be the doom of us all.
Yeah. Stock up on beer. That's my only advice.
Well, let's come back for one more episode. I want to talk about a couple of these idiots, right?
Okay.
All right, everyone. We made it to the end officially here this time, everyone. So please come back, join us for the third and final part with me and Tim here. And until then, I hope your life, your day, and everything about it is absolutely awesome.